So I never knew that I was different. Because when you are in second grade, you really don't know anything different than the life that you live. And my life, was just the life of the ordinary second grader, school, homework, but nothing compared to the homework these kids get in second grade now. Projects, playtime, church, sleep, bathing, second graders and bathing, but what was, I didn't know I was so different because I had something else going on. And that was that gradually and slowly I started noticing that everyone in the distance was starting to become a little fuzzy and not quite as crisp as I had seen before. I noticed that I was always been yelled at by my mother because I would sit right in front of the television. The old television where you had to turn the dial, literally. She told me I was going to ruin my eyesight by sitting so close. And it wasn't really until the teacher at the school started to notice that I was squinting all the time trying to see the board, that in conversation with my parents and the teacher, they both agreed that I needed to go have my eyes checked. And of course, I was told I was going to have glasses. And that was right at the beginning of my third grade year. And I was so embarrassed about not wanting to go to school in glasses because I knew what happened to kids in third grade with glasses. They would be called four eyes, you know the list. But once I put the glasses on, it was like a whole new world opened up for me. All of a sudden, I could see the chalkboard. I could read clearly what was in the books. I didn't have to sit right in front of the television. It sort of reminded me of the Wizard of Oz. At one point I was in Kansas, everything fuzzy and black and white, and then I landed in Oz and everything was an amazing Technicolor. Beautiful. What a gift to be able to see, and not only to see, but to notice a lot of the things that I simply had missed because my eyesight was not in good condition. Today's gospel, we hear the story, again, another post-resurrection story of Jesus. This time it also begins on Easter Sunday. And we see two disciples of Jesus who, instead of joining the other apostles and disciples and locking themselves up in the upper room for fear, these guys probably were the smarter ones. They were going to get the heck out of Dodge. And so they were traveling to Emmaus, which was only 7 miles away, but it was just enough distance that they could get away in a day's journey from all of the chaos that happened over the weekend. And they heard reports about Jesus being risen from the dead, But they hadn't seen him. So these two men, who we assume had been with some of the earliest apostles and disciples, who had ate with Jesus, who talked with Jesus, who learned from him, who laughed with him, who went to parties with him, who went out probably amongst the other disciples and went and proclaimed the good news. I mean, they knew who Jesus was, but they must have been in such a state of confusion and blindness that when this man shows up along the same road to Emmaus as they are, and he starts talking to them, that they do not recognize him. And I think it's a bit odd. How could you not recognize somebody that you were with all those years? But remember, every post-resurrection story, people don't always recognize Jesus at first. And I think it has a lot to do because people's emotions get in the way. When you're fearful, you don't think rationally. When you're worried, you don't think rationally. You know, a lot of human emotions that you and I go through cause us not to see the things that are right in front of our faces, like it was with Jesus and those disciples. Now it became nighttime. Jesus had told them everything in Scripture about what they already knew but needed a reminder of, and they begged him to stop and eat with them, because not to do so would have been inhospitable, which is one of the worst sins you can do in that time. And so Jesus agrees to sit with them, and then something amazing happens. Jesus takes the bread, he breaks the bread, and their eyes were opened. It's as if they put on the glasses that they forgot to be carrying. They were blind out of fear and anxiety, and now they could see that the man that they were with was the risen Lord himself. You know, we are told in our faith that we recognize and we receive Jesus through the breaking of the bread and receiving of the cup. That's why the Eucharist, the Great Thanksgiving, is such an important part of our liturgy, because it is at that moment, amongst other brothers and sisters, that we come forward and we receive the body and blood of Christ and are filled with him in order to give us strength to go into the world and serve him. But sometimes our minds, when we're here, are so occupied on other things. What's my grocery list today when I have to go to the grocery store after church? Ooh, how much laundry do I have to get done this afternoon? What project is due for school? What have I been putting off for work? Who have I been needing to visit that I haven't visited? You know those distractions. And so you come forward, you kneel down or stand, and you receive the host, you receive the wine. But because of everything that's going on up here, you don't recognize the gift you're receiving. It becomes rote. It loses specialness. And if we can't, on a Sunday, recognize Christ in the breaking of the bread, my question for us then is, how are we going to be able to recognize Christ in other people? If we are created in the image of God, the Imago Dei, then we must be able to see Christ in everyone around us. And I mean everyone. It could be your spouse that you had an argument with, or your kid who you just want to put them in their room, lock them in the room, and tell them they can't come out for another 2 weeks. Or your neighbor who has been nothing but a pain in the you-know-what. Or the homeless person at the train station. Or the single mom who comes to our mission center at St. Michael and All Angels that needs help. Or the immigrant. Or the elderly who, you've seen it, are stuck often in nursing homes, stuck in those hallways, staring out into nothingness, wondering when they'll die. But they're Jesus too. You see, Jesus is all around us. Even in individuals who society condemns because they've committed crimes, Jesus is still in them, even if they've kept him locked in their hearts. We know that Jesus comes to us like a thief in the night. He'll come to us as somebody who's hungry. He comes to us as somebody who needs clothing, as somebody who needs healing, as somebody who's in prison, as somebody whom society has rejected. And we as Christians are called to recognize the Christ in the human and to serve him or her and to help in whatever way we can. Now, it's not always going to be easy. In fact, I bet 9 times out of 10, we miss Jesus completely because we're not wearing the right glasses. We're too distracted. We're too fearful. We're too self-centered. But if we, from Sunday after Sunday, come forward and receive Christ in the breaking of the bread, if we receive him in the cup, how much more will we be able to recognize him in the others in our midst? The disciples, after Jesus left, were a bit stunned. You know, they knew. They had that gut feeling that there was something about that man that they were talking to. But again, because of their own stuff, they weren't able to recognize him. They went back to Jerusalem, back to the upper room, shared the good news, and heard that Peter himself had also seen the risen Lord. My friends, as we live into this Easter season, see Christ around you. See Christ beside you. See Christ above you. See Christ beneath you. See Christ behind you. See Christ everywhere you look. And be the hands and feet of him in the world today. Amen.
Amen.